Okay, so since you are still staying in the room, I'm assuming that you are all interested in entrepreneurship in Middle East and North Africa, and you will be asking questions. This is the 6th panel that I'm moderating on this very same issue in the last 2 years. Some of them, I had the opportunity to sit with Tuğba, which was very nice. And today we'll get different perspectives. In the other panels, it was more Egypt, North Africa, a little bit of, Iraq, Iran, those parts of the Middle East. Now we have a more Gulf set of panelists, which is an interesting perspective. But let me give the priority to Turks still. Since we are the hosts. So we are the hosts. No. Let me start with you. Let me start with Ferruh Bey. Ferruh Bey is the MENA head of corporate affairs at Intel. And he knows the region very well. He has been doing this, he has been at this role for many years. So let me start with asking you, how is the entrepreneurial ecosystem is evolving in Middle East? What are the linkages between countries? Where are the main gaps? And what's your perspective?
Thanks, Usal. And thanks a lot for coming here and allocating your time to listen to us. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if the mic is on and you can hear me. Okay, so as Usal mentioned, I have been doing this role for the past 8 years. And I had the chance to travel in especially Middle East region to also observe how the entrepreneurship ecosystem is evolving. The way I would like to look into this is from a framework perspective. What is the entrepreneurship framework? And within that framework, what is kind of working well and what areas we need to focus more on? And there are many frameworks of entrepreneurship. There are universities, some consulting companies, they all come up with nice frameworks. And the one that I like to use and have been kind of following up is that was created by World Economic Forum and the Boost Company back in 2012, I think. And that is grouping the entrepreneurship ecosystem components into 4 areas. And they are called the enablers of entrepreneurship. And those 4 areas, the first one is people-related, people enablers. So that's about the education of people, integration of entrepreneurship and some certain employability skills into the education system, the mentorship, the advisors, and all the people-related components. The second one is financial components, financial enablers. The VCs, the governmental financial supports, the banks, crowdfunding, microfinancing, whatever you call, all the financial enablers. Then business enablers. Business enablers are the ones that around incubation, acceleration, some professional services, legal services that's required for the entrepreneurs. And then the last one is environmental enablers, and that's around the regulatory framework, infrastructure, including technology, and the entrepreneurial organizations that's in the region. So within those 4 enablers, I think the way I observed, I think on the financial side and on the business side, there has been very strong progress in the region, including Turkey as well. So when you look into the presence and the investments of VCs, angel investors into the region, let's say 10 years ago and today, there's a significant improvement. Also, some of the companies that exited from the region, they are now investing back into the region. So I think there is some good progress. Surely, you can progress more, but I see it positively. On the business side, I see many now incubators, accelerators that's getting established in the region, and they're doing some good job. But I think it all starts with education. So that's why I would like to focus on education, that we need to do more. And there is various data that supports it. Just as simple as the PISA scores. If you're following up the PISA scores, that is measuring the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math skills of the OECD countries. There are 5 countries from our region: Turkey, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, and Tunisia that's taking part in the PISA scores. And unfortunately, all of them are below the OECD average. And Qatar, Jordan, and Tunisia are in the bottom 6 countries. So that shows, there's huge room in terms of progressing STEM education and making sure that the young generation, grows with the relevant skills that will help them, to become or to create, technology innovation-based companies in the future. And that's really the start. Also on the entrepreneurship education side, I think we need to make sure that entrepreneurship education is incorporated into the official formal or informal, education system. Now it's mostly happening at university level, but that needs to start from a much earlier age, because at the end of the day, you know, when you are a university student, you're already shaped somehow. So that's why primary and secondary education is very important on the entrepreneurial skill side. And that's the age that you can really start giving employability skills to people. Going back to, you know, the environmental enablers, I think regulatory framework in the region, or the regulations, is really a major roadblock for entrepreneurs in the region. If you look into the countries that are really growing in their entrepreneurial, you know, activities, it's not those that doesn't really have any regulations, because you need to have regulations. I'm not against regulations. As a corporate affairs person, you know, that's our job as well. But you need to do the right regulations so that they become enablers. They open up, they bring openness, not to control the system, but really to enable the system. And just a few data points on the regulation side. So there's, for example, the new business density index. That's measuring, you know, that's measured by World Bank Group. And that index is measuring you know, the companies that are created per 1,000 person. And the average of MENA is 1.04. So for every 1,000, there's only one person that creates a company and becomes an entrepreneur, whereas the OECD average is 6.84. So of course, we don't expect hundreds, you know, to become entrepreneurs. It will be some sort of single-digit number. But, you know, MENA is 1, OECD average is almost 7. So there's a 7-fold difference in between. Ease of doing business, that's very important to enable, you know, the entrepreneurship in the region. Again, World Bank data, MENA, they are measuring this by region, and there are 7 regions that they measure in the world. MENA is the 5th region among the 7, so, you know, second from the last. Only, you know, some MENA countries are performing a bit better than some of the Asian countries. And the OECD score of the MENA countries is 59.60, let's say, to make it simple. And then the OECD average is 75. So there's like 20% gap, again, between ease of doing business of OECD average versus the MENA countries. And there are so many other data that, you know, shows that, you know, unfortunately on the regulation side, MENA region needs to really improve and put regulations that enables the ecosystem and not trying to control the ecosystem. And let me stop here and give a chance, you know, to the others.
I think this was a very good overview, and as we see, the picture is not that bright in our region. Let me turn to Tuğba now and ask, so Tuğba, when we got into this, maybe 5 years ago, we held this big congress here in Istanbul where, you know, American government was involved, Vice President Biden was here, etc. It was a very top-down movement, and there were no accelerators in the region, which is a very bottom-up thing that brings entrepreneurs together. Then you started your accelerator in Saudi, which is very special. Tell us a bit about that, and also about the Saudi environment and how the accelerator interacts with the Saudi environment, which is by far one of the largest markets in the region.
Thank you. Looking at the ecosystem components that Mr. Ferruh mentioned, which are the stem of the study that we did back in 2011, the first thing that we did was to acquire the license for Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is where we met 5 years ago, to see and forecast from the learnings and benchmarkings of 157 countries and take that back home to Saudi to excite the entrepreneurs and then do something tangible with that know-how. What came out as a result was the perception of everyone about Saudi from when we speak to them. You're an oil-rich country, you're youth-rich, you are resource-rich, why do you need the help of anyone? Your government should simply support entrepreneurship by removing barriers, and it's a shame you don't have entrepreneurs. The reality, when we began our research indoors, was basically, yes, we do have a lot of youth, but not many people listen to them, not even their parents. And yes, we have a lot of rich people, but that stays at the 3% of the top strata. The bottom down, 60% pretty much has no access to any kind of financial facilitation. And third and most important is because you are perceived as a rich nation, none of the grant-giving entities internationally, including large corporations, take Saudi as a priority. So you cannot find sponsors. Your own Islamic Development Bank does not give a penny to any of the programs you would put up. And when I went out there and I said, I'm going to build an accelerator in 2011, they thought I was even crazier because even the STEM numbers showcase, we have no techies, we have no geeks, we have no programmers. What the hell are you going to do putting up tech companies? You're a woman, what do you know? You know, that was the initial response that I got. I am a graduate of computer science and engineering, class of 97 from Saudi Arabia, one of the first females to do so. I knew that we had over 20,000 female gamers, programmers, not gamers players, that's around 1.5 million actually, but they don't surface. So we went really, really down to the roots of where these people were hanging out. We held very quiet, unannounced sessions. We found caliber of close to 15,000 people across 13 regions of Saudi. And I was very lucky. I also found know-how partners. He's actually in the room, Ramiz Mohammed, Flash 6 Labs. They had done this in Cairo. When everything in Cairo was going down, I said, well, Saudi is just like you guys. We don't have any systems, come and help us. And we made Flash 6 Labs Jeddah happen. Flash 6 Labs Jeddah, our first cohort, we had 40 plus teams that applied. They told us we couldn't even find 2. And out of those, we graduated 5 companies within 2.5 months, and 3 of those got really cool, brilliant follow-on investments. In an ecosystem where we don't even have angels and mentors, today in 15 months we have close to 23 companies we graduated, 65% follow-on investment rate, 42% female founders rate, and another close to 57% female co-founders rate. So we did what we said we would, and we made it successful. But the problem was not proving that you can make an accelerator, a MENA ecosystem successful. The problem is we need tons of these accelerators, tons of excitement centers. So when we went out there, we designed 17 programs, accelerator being one of them. The second was I Code Saudi. I need to teach Saudis how to develop, because none of our schools gives the kids to think for themselves or the right to do something they believe in or to pursue their dreams. We don't have perseverance, we don't have the guts. And as Dr. Steve asked me, do you have guts of people that are willing to give up their all to become entrepreneurs? The answer is no. We probably have 0.000000001% of the population that's there. So I'm hunting for unicorns in a haystack. And it's very difficult. So I need the support of corporations like Intel, like Microsoft, like IBM, to believe in the fact that if we are to raise entrepreneurs, we need to get onto the education system first so people know how to follow through their ideas. Yes, we have all the horrible fours, legislations, lack of talent, lack of workforce, lack of equity financing. That doesn't mean we don't have entrepreneurs. And I think we've proved the point that they're out there. Thank you.
Okay. Hassan, you're from Bahrain.
Yes.
And Bahrain is a small country, and what we know is that generally small countries are good at entrepreneurship. Is that the case in Bahrain, and how do you feel when you are investing in Bahrain? What are the opportunities, what are the challenges?
So Bahrain's a small country, and by definition, we have to look outside because it's a small market. And so a lot of what we do is focused on the larger region. So we, from day one, most of our startups say, hey, we're not out for the Bahraini market, we're out for the GCC, we're out for the MENA region. So that's sort of the overview of what the Bahraini sort of startup ecosystem is. They're like, we're gonna test in the small market, which is Bahrain. And then we're going to expand into our neighbors, Saudi Arabia. They're an hour away, and the UAE and Kuwait and Qatar and all these things are very close to where we are. And then what our ambition is to be a MENA-wide, at least, operator, a MENA-wide player in the market. And so I think that's what's interesting about being from a small ecosystem is that you look out rather than looking in, and you try to do things outside which are more interesting. And so that's one of the things that's been interesting for me is from day one. I mean, I helped form one of the first angel investment groups in the MENA region about 5 years ago, and from day one we're like, we're going to focus on Bahrain, but all of our startups are going to be targeting the region. It's not just here, this country. We don't look here. And so we have a competitive advantage in that because startups that start in Saudi or in Turkey, they have a big market in their backyard. It might not be big enough for them, but it's a big market, and so they get stuck there and don't really look anywhere outside. And so people think it's unfortunate that we're in a small market, but I actually think it's a positive thing for us. And so with 500 startups now, my outlook is by nature regional wide, and so we're looking at investing across the MENA region. We've made 30 investments in the region. 2 of them are in Bahrain, but there's a lot more in every other country. And I believe in the region. I used to be an investment banker. I did my own startup, and then started this angel network that sort of was one of the first to really look at equity financing in the Gulf. I think there weren't really that many people looking at seed stage, early idea sort of stage equity financing. And I think, things look negative when you look at the numbers and you look at the top-down approach and things like that. But I spend a lot of my time with entrepreneurs on the ground, talking to them, sorting through the problems that they have, the issues that they face, and things like that. And there's a lot of them. There's so many that I don't have time for all the entrepreneurs that come and need the assistance and help that they'd like from me. And so I don't think we have an issue of finding the entrepreneurs. I don't think we have an issue of are there enough entrepreneurs in the region. I don't think we have an issue are there the right caliber of entrepreneurs, because some of the entrepreneurs here are world-class entrepreneurs. Their talents are amazing. So I don't think the entrepreneur side of the equation is much of the problem when we're looking at the MENA region. I think one of the main issues that we face in getting this region off the ground is the willingness of investors to write checks. And this is, I've been at this for a long time, and the issue that I see is that you have an amazing startup, they get the first round from accelerators, and then there's a gap. There's very few angel networks, and even the ones that are there, they write very few checks every year, and then so there's a gap until they get to Series A. Now there's a bunch of players that are in Series A level, but you need to bridge this gap, and so people aren't investing at the right stage. There's a bunch of VC funds that have been launched that are Series B and higher. But by the time a company gets there, they have lots of other options for funding. It's the seed stage gap that really is a major issue and a hindrance here in the MENA region. And we hope that more people will start writing checks and more investors will pay attention to startups here. And I really think that will be the trigger for the whole region to sort of wake up and for entrepreneurs to get to where they need to be going.
Thank you. Let's get questions from the floor. Any questions? I think if you are here not networking outside, you should have either a personal interest in one of the panelists or in the subject matter. Yes. Do we have a mic? Or maybe you can come. Okay.
When we look at Israel, we see that there is actually a symbiotic relationship between the capital structure in the United States and the idea generation. Do you think that Turkey, although the capabilities are different, Turkey could play a role in terms of generating a symbiotic relationship with the MENA region? If yes, what sort of entities would we need?
This is a very interesting question, and maybe I can turn to Ferruh, and let me rephrase the question. First of all, are we really talking about a region or separate fragmented countries? And if yes, does Turkey have a role?
I think you mentioned the right point of whether we call MENA or we call the Arab world, but does it really exist? How much collaboration between the countries is going on? How much freedom of travel between the countries is going on? So I think there are lots of issues, again, mostly on the policy regulatory side, that needs to be solved so that the region becomes one in terms of monetary policies, in terms of people transfer and all that. And when it comes to, you asked a specific question about Turkey, I think Tuba also mentioned about that, or maybe Hassan, it was you. The curse of Turkey is a big market. So entrepreneurs or even financial companies from Turkey only look into Turkey, and they don't look beyond Turkey, and that's a major problem of Turkey, of not being able to import what they have or not being able to connect with the region from a really, role model perspective. And the second issue is language. Unfortunately, I mean, being Turkish as well, Turkey doesn't speak English or any other language other than Turkish, and that goes back to, again, it being a big market that they don't need to. I mean, that's how they see it, and that's a major problem.
Hasan?
We talk about the MENA region, and you're perfectly correct. It isn't a region as a whole. I mean, if you add Turkey into it, it sort of messes things up because Turkish is a different language. The culture's, although similar, is a little different than the rest of the Arab world. If you look at MENA as the Arab world outside, exclude Iran from the whole equation, then you have a common language, but again, freedom of travel is an issue. So the way that I look at the MENA region is in pockets. There's 3 distinct pockets in the MENA region outside of Turkey and Iran. One is the Gulf states, so the GCC, so Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Oman. They're so similar and they have a lot of common interests. Even though there's differences between them, I look at those as one sort of market because the culture is very similar there. The freedom of movement is quite easy, and like you can get flights anywhere there. So the Gulf is one pocket, and I think the main pocket in the Gulf is probably Saudi is the biggest market, and that's what people need to be looking at. The other pocket that I look at is the Levant area, which would be Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, so that would, and Syria as well. That would be another pocket. There's activity happening in Lebanon. There's activity happening in Jordan. There's a lot of Palestinian entrepreneurs that are quite active. So that's another region that it's easy to connect with, and that's one other pocket. The third one is North Africa, and that's sort of anchored by Egypt. You have Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya as well in that sort of scope. But that's a very different market as well because they look north, they look to France for their expansions and things. So you're right, there isn't one MENA region. And if you want to be the hub for the MENA region, you have to be the hub for all these individual countries. So what part can Turkey play? Turkey can try to reach out more. There's a lot of business happening between the Gulf and Turkey. There's a lot of business happening between Jordan and Levant and Turkey and Africa and Turkey. So I think there is an opportunity, but I don't think that should be what you aim for. I think it's something a bit different. Turkey can act as a segue more between Asia and Europe. So the MENA region and Europe, it could be the first step for MENA entrepreneurs to enter Europe would be through Turkey. I think that might be an interesting opportunity to look at.
I actually believe in entrepreneurs without borders. That's my perception because consumers, customers don't have borders, especially in technology companies. You should be able to sell to any geographic region. And I honestly believe we have been creating all these pockets and all these policy discussions in all our governmental, dealings, the think tanks, the funds. No, my fund is only for Levant. No, I cover the MENA. No, I'm GCC. I believe in the total dissolvency of any borders we're creating for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are bright kids that should be able to jump on a plane. He needs to make a meeting in London, come back to wherever he wants in Iran, back to Jeddah, go to Bahrain, pop back to Istanbul, and make his consumers and his market as big as he can because he's creating jobs. There is no way we should be blocking them and sealing them off or shutting them off in clusters. Now, investors do that, and I think one of the main reasons we're not able to open it up is because of the people that are building the ecosystems. We're very biased towards our own ecosystems. I'm not. I am an entrepreneur without borders, and I would recommend that we highly pursue that. Okay?
One last question. If there is no question, I'm wrapping up the panel before Ozan gets more angry. So thank you very much. This was a very dynamic and short panel, and we are looking forward to a dynamic future in our region.